Awesome. Thank you guys so much for coming. Am I good? I'm good. Okay. So I don't plan anything. I'm going to show you our new releases, some of my favorite stuff, and probably most misunderstood pedals. And then a little bit of, the pedals with an alternate source than a guitar. But at any time, if you have questions, just ask the questions. It'll be more fun, I think, for everyone. Here, it's in my latest effect, an iPhone delay. So yeah, that's what's going on. If you're not familiar with us, I'm Jamie Stillman, the founder and product designer for EarthQuaker devices. This is Julie Robbins, my wife and our CEO. We own EarthQuaker together. We are from Akron, Ohio. We started around 2004, 2005-ish. A little loose on that start date because it was a total accident. Just started from me fixing some broken pedals and then building stuff for friends. And then before I knew it, I accidentally started a pedal company, which is kind of maybe how most pedal companies are started. Guitar players with soldering irons are dangerous. So yeah, it started in my basement. Now we have about 35 employees, and we have a few shops in Akron. Our main headquarters is where we do all of our PCB population, all the assembly of the pedals, the shipping, the marketing, all the business. And then a couple blocks away, we have a facility where we do all of our own enclosures in-house. So we do all the machining, powder coating, and printing in-house there. And then pretty much right across the street from that, we have a studio where we do all of our videos and recording and sessions and stuff like that. So we do every single thing in-house, I guess the old-fashioned way, by learning as we go. But we're very fortunate to have a bunch of awesome employees who really care about their jobs and the products and everything. So it's cool. That's EarthQuaker in a nutshell. I guess real quick, I'll just play through some of the pedals and then I'll just start talking about them one by one. Thank you. Just noodling around. Before I get started, does anybody have any questions about anything at all? No. All right.
Yes.
Well, you can wait, actually.
Okay. Are you sure?
Because well, as you know, we lost David Lynch this year.
Yes.
It was very sad.
A little bummer.
There was an estate auction.
Yes.
For stuff. Fascinating list of stuff.
It was.
It was one of your pedals.
I know.
Overdrive.
Yeah.
In a Black Lodge finish.
Yeah.
What they listed at. It sold for $6,500.
That's insane. It was really crazy.
Because it's David Lynch, probably, because like
Yeah.
coffee makers sold for like 1,000.
Right.
I was just curious about that's like limited edition. Is it a one-off you did for him? Is it something you do from time to time? Is it one-off?
Yeah, so not typically for other people, and that was kind of a weird situation. I can't remember the store that we did those for. Do you remember?
No, I can't remember.
So-
But yeah, store wanted this special like edition, but it got shut down pretty quickly.
Yeah, so yeah, we made the Black Lodge edition specifically for a store, and it was a very small amount of them. And then it got shut down by whatever movie studio owns the rights to Twin Peaks. But we had given one to, forgive me, I cannot remember the actual actress's name, but who played the log lady.
Okay.
And she actually did a video with it, which is insane. We did not ask her to do it, but she.
Plays guitar.
I don't think she played guitar in it. I think she just made a video and was talking about the pedal. And then he wanted one. David Lynch wanted one, so we made him one and sent it to him. And it has a drawing inside, which I'm pretty sure he never opened it to find it. So whoever got it, I hope that someday they open it and see the little cat drawing of the log lady. But yeah, everybody, as you might imagine, like more than half of our shop was like super stoked about this pedal being in David Lynch's auction and like watching it like a hawk, and also trying to win literally anything from the auction. But like it was like pencils were like $500. It was like so crazy. Yeah, but I wish there was a cooler story to that. But it's like it was fascinating when it went up. Like kind of. You know, we knew that we sent him one, but didn't know if it would actually make it to him. So it was like once it went up for auction, it was like, oh my God, he actually has this thing.
It was a really nice touch that the treble and bass were like upside down.
Yeah,
Great,
it's perfect. Yeah, that's a good question.
Thank you. Thank you. I thought it was a weird place to start.
No, that's a great place to
It's
start.
so funny how much we just like can't remember that. We're like, oh, is there something?
It's kind of the
I
worst.
just Googled it, and it may have been a prize for something. Yeah.
Well,
We
We-
do a lot of things. It's hard to remember
Yeah.
every detail of all of it.
Yeah, it's actually, I find it just slightly embarrassing how like I know 75% of the things I should know about EarthQuaker related stuff, and then sometimes things are a surprise to
Don't
me.
ask them how much anything costs.
Yeah. When it was made, how many of them there are, like I will get it wrong 100% of the time.
Maybe a question kind of related to that
Yeah.
is when you're sitting down to come up with a new product idea, you know, now that you have an army of pedals that
Yeah.
you've kind of designed, what's sort of the impetus to get started? Is it something that you yourself are kind of thinking about? Is it feedback that you're getting from people who love your products, or?
It's still mostly stuff that like I'm thinking about. Like at the moment, I'm not really playing guitar in a band, so therefore I'm not really like thinking all the time like I typically was. It happens to coincide with this like I don't know what the right word for it is. This like kind of rash, I hate that word, of like artists getting in touch with us about like wanting to make things. And that has kind of been my focus for like the last like 2 or 3 years, which is a perfect segue into the first pedal I was going to talk about. But before I get there, historically speaking, it's always just something that I wish that I had, or how I wished something else would work, and then my take on it or whatever. but that's kind of how things come about. Very rarely is it like customer feedback, I guess. In fact, we kind of go to great lengths to get people to stop sending us ideas. Not for any like reason more than like, what if we're already working on something like this and you don't want you to feel like we've stolen your idea and we're not going to pay you for it or whatever. So we've never really taken any feedback, I guess, into account when developing a pedal. But by the time a product, I make a lot of stuff, I guess. So like, not everything I make actually comes out. There's like a couple things a year where I'm like, this is interesting. I keep going back to this. So I'm, for whatever reason, to me, it's interesting. And then we'll pass it around to like mostly employees in-house. There's like a testing team, and kind of get their feedback on it. And then sometimes give it to like artists on the road or stuff like that, just to see like, is this as interesting as I think it is, or am I crazy? I don't know. But yeah, that's pretty much how things happen. I make it. If I can't stop thinking about it, we turn it into a thing. And then
How many things do you usually have going at the same time?
usually like, I mean, an average amount would probably be like 3 or 4 projects at the same time. But in the last 2 years, I think that the only reason why I bring it up is because I think it's crazy. I know that it's crazy, is that we've prototyped like 43 new pedals. Not all of them are like mind-blowing shit, and some of them have come out, like all the utility series of stuff. So like, some of them are ABY boxes and things like that. So they're not all like things, but I would say like there's probably like at least 30 actual effects that I've made, and probably 1 or 2 of them will actually end up coming out, but they'll probably find their way into other things. I get lately obsessed with simple and useful, and like doesn't require a lot of thought, which is 100% the opposite of the way that the entire world is going, where it's like, yeah, but it doesn't have MIDI. And it's like, well, do you always use MIDI when you're? No, you never do. Actually, you just like to talk about it on the internet. So, there's stuff like that. I'm making fun of it. I apologize if I've offended people who are super into MIDI. Yeah, I'm on a rant now. I'll go into, there we go.
How much room do you think there still is to create some new effects?
Yeah.
Or on the opposite, and no pun intended, do you think that the market is saturated with effects?
A little of both. Like, I can see from like a consumer standpoint that there's like option paralysis in the guitar pedal world. I do believe that there's room for everything. Like, anybody can, it's like being like, do you think there can be another painting? Really? What are you gonna do? Tell people to stop creating stuff? I mean, there's room for all of it. It's just a matter of like how much you want to believe the bullshit that we all say to sell it all. You just listen. I just assume that people choose products by listening to them and being like, this sounds good to me, and like when they look at it, like, I understand that, and it looks like it'd be fun to make music with. I would not recommend to anybody to start a guitar pedal company today. It seems like it'd be a very hard market to get into, like if you're looking for that to be your only job. I will say that like the kind of rut of everybody just making like boosters and fuzzes and overdrives, and now they're a company, is maybe a little bit over, in which now you're seeing people like start with these like really elaborate DSP based pedals where it's like mind-blowing, like some of the things that are coming out. And I think that grabs people's attention, whether or not they're like musical or easy to understand. Like, that seems to be the new direction, is like there's this whole group of younger people, I think, who like grew up like loving pedals and being really into that, and then going to school to like learn how to do like sound design and things like that, and they're coming out with all these super creative, interesting things. So I think that stuff has a lot of room, and it keeps getting proven. It's like, how much of that though can there possibly be? And then you kind of like run that weird risk of like a lot of this stuff can be done like in a computer and a plug-in and things like that. So that's like a whole new world too that's interfering. But yeah, I don't know. I think that the excitement for like pedals, like the community of it all, like people getting together and hanging out and just being into like new gear, is probably just as strong as it ever was. Like there's definitely more forums and like meetups and YouTube shows and stuff like that for this, but like I think the interest in like buying stuff, like you really gotta grab people for them to actually take the plunge to make a purchase. How you do that now, I have no idea. But we've been like as a company, I think, you know, super fortunate. Like we've like have awesome customers and like kind of a strong following that I feel like we built the old-fashioned way, just word of mouth. Like we didn't do any advertising until like 2012, something like that. And then that might be a date I actually get right. I think it was 2012. And like we stopped a while ago, so it's kind of just gone back to like word of mouth and just relying on people being excited by the stuff that we do. But yeah, it's a hard market. It's a hard market to get into, as would be like, you know, anything, I think, in the musical instrument world, especially if you're in amps. But yeah.
Cool, thanks.
All right, any other questions? Those are two good questions. Okay,
Got another.
Me again.
you.
You just mentioned amps. Have you ever considered going into like pickups, amps, more?
Yeah, actually considered it. We built some amps. We did 20 total.
Testing?
We were going to sell them, and we did for a minute. We built 20.
Sold all 20. We did
Mm,
live some each, what, like 3 times?
yeah, we sold 18 actually. We kept 2 of them. Learned very quickly that making amps and making pedals are two completely different worlds. We did like we always do. I have a problem where I'm always like, how hard can it be? It's just cut some wood and we glue it and it's fine. Like, what's it gonna take you, like an hour? And no, it's not that at all. So like the place that is actually our studio now was our first shop when we moved out of the basement. And before it became our studio, it was our amp building workshop. So we had a whole wood workshop in there. We were doing all the cabinets
There's
in-house.
still blobs of glue on the ground.
Yeah, it's gross. We ruined everything. Ruined the tile, all the tools that we had. Like, very quickly learned, like, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, the people we had doing the woodworking do woodworking. Like, they know what they're doing. They're also employees of ours, but they've done cabinetry and stuff like that. And they've, you know, the amp itself was designed by a former employee of ours, Joe Golden, who is an amp builder. He still works around us doing amp repair and builds amps and sells them on Reverb. It just seemed like such a good idea until like we got into it. And then we started looking around, like maybe, you know, these amps, we have a lot of ideas for amps, you know, just really loud, clean amps. Yeah, you know, so what my goal, I will tell you, like my goal for this was like, let's build a 50 and 100 watt amp that has one control, one giant control for level that is perfectly EQ'd and it never distorts. What we got is one 25 watt amp that distorts on 2 and treble and bass control. But it sounded really, really good. But it was a design that Joe like really wanted to push. And I agreed, like it had a really nice, like kind of hi-fi, like Fender sound to it. And we still use them in our demo videos all the time. Excuse me. But yeah, it turned out like that it wasn't for us. And then we kind of started looking around, like who else? We wanted to keep the manufacturing close to us. dare I say, we wanted to keep the manufacturing in the United States, but I think today that means a very different thing to us. I could give a shit if it was manufactured in the United States, but like, at the time it was like very important. Like, we know the people, we have a good relationship. That's like kind of how we have to operate, like with the people that we work with. Amp makers are weird as hell. Not all of them, but like a lot of the ones that we talk to. I guess this is on the internet. I shouldn't say it, but they're weird. They have questionable beliefs.
From my CEO point of view, I remember getting the bill of materials, like approving that cost, and then we priced it, and then getting a whole other like $25,000 worth of materials and equipment we needed.
Oh,
Made
yeah.
it all completely unprofitable.
This was
Yeah,
this was
it's like-
us, by the
yeah.
way, not other people. This was
This
so.
is us doing it internally.
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
Everything. So yeah, I was like, okay, so they cost about twice what we've already sold them for. Perfect.
Yes, and that is true. We spent an embarrassing amount of money to sell 18 amplifiers. We lost a lot of money on that whole thing. That said, I would love to make amps someday in a responsible, reasonable way. I don't really know. We have some stuff coming up that kind of straddles this line, I would say. Yeah, I am a strong supporter of playing amplifiers, not modeling ones. I'm looking at all of you in the eye as best I can.
Did you bring this amp or it's the stores?
The stores.
Funky design. Funky
It's a cool amp.
UA?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a ball train amplifier.
Yep,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
a Fender circuit.
Yeah, sounds good.
Is your last pedal is like a way to build amp without building it?
Sort of. I'm going to use this as a segue into talking about something that I cannot show you. So the last thing that we made was this right here. It's actually not in use, so I'll just take it off. Hold it up. It's called Easy Listening. It's a little solid state headphone amp. It does analog like speaker simulation, and then just into a headphone driver. And of course, it's not going to. Oh, here, if you just want to pass it around. Of course, it's not going to replace an actual amplifier. Like, I don't believe anything does. Even the world's best modeler has the same dynamics as a guitar and an amplifier in a room moving air. But to me, it sounds good. Definitely good enough. It was designed as a headphone amplifier, and I use a lot of headphone amplifiers during development just so I don't annoy the shit out of all of our staff who are trying to work. And I use a Kemper, and I use the Kemper model of 65 Deluxe Reverb, and then I use an actual 65 Deluxe Reverb. And then I've gone through a number of other ones. The Strymon Iridium is one that I've used too, and kind of set that to a 65. So they all have this sort of similar sound that I like. So I was aiming to make something really tiny and affordable that would be good on all of our demo boards, and that was that. Also, like, have ideas for more variations on this. Shockingly, very well received in a day of like everything is a modeler with like a million impulse responses and all of the shit. I was relieved and maybe a little flattered to find out that there are other people who think like me, where they're like, I do not want to model this shit, and I do not want to read this manual, and I do not want to worry about updates and things like that. So it has done really well. I didn't anticipate it. I thought that it might be a useful tool, so it's like part of our utility line. It's $99 in the US. I don't know what that translates to here by the time you get like $1 million or something. But like, but sorry, make a tariff joke.
Beautiful work.
Yeah, this is the best. Sorry. Yeah, but this was like sort of a. it is kind of in that like realm of starting to work on like amp like the kind of self-contained systems, I'll say. I partnered with I'm not going to give this information away. I was about to just tell you a whole thing about it'll be out before the end of this year, and then you guys will know that I almost gave it away. But yeah, I kind of want to do more stuff like this, even though it's not like really it's not the message, I guess, I want to send as a manufacturer of gear. Like I believe that like live music is suffering from modeling. It's like people, I don't know if bands know what they sound like big bands who play through like in like stadiums and stuff like that. It's like listening to a CD being blasted through like horns and like just tweet. It sounds awful. There's like no dynamics to anything. This is my opinion. This is not fact or the opinion of EarthQuaker devices, but like this is, well, I guess maybe it is the opinion of EarthQuaker. You know, I don't want to like say it's going to replace an amplifier, but I think it does a pretty decent job. In the video that we made for it, I'm running it just straight into a cheap Focusrite Scarlett because I feel like it's a very common interface and most people would have it, just so you can see what it sounds like, and that's what it sounds like. The video is just some pedals run into it straight into the interface, and it does a pretty good job of like a flat amplifier response. It lacks like the kind of, while it lacks like the dynamics of the room, it doesn't add fake dynamics of a room like literally every impulse response I feel like I've heard, where it's like, that sounds good for a while, but why don't you try layering 3 guitars and like all of a sudden it starts to feel like it's missing something. Again, personal opinion, but sorry, it was a long-winded rant on like my issues with modeling, but.
I have so many questions, but yeah, you were talking about business earlier. So
Yeah.
in the last 20 years, what was the hardest business decision that you guys had to make?
I think that the hardest decisions that every business eventually has to come to a point where you have to let somebody go or lay people off. And like a company like EarthQuaker, like everybody is like part of a family. And in some cases, they are actually family. And sometimes you have to make those choices. Like you just have to let people go, and it sucks. That's probably the hardest thing. The other is when like good ideas and sales just don't line up.
Which would be which pedal?
You name it. You know, you can't really. Like this last year, I guess. Like this last year has been insane. Like it's a man-made crisis by our president. You know, like it sucks. We have to do all kinds of things we don't want to do. You know, and all of them I feel like are kind of hard decisions. Like you can't make everything you want to make. Sometimes you have to do stuff just specifically because you know it's going to make money. You know, I stand behind like anything that I make, but sometimes it's just like, well, I think that people will really like this, or like maybe instead of putting out something new where you have to import all of this stuff, we do like a reissue of something that people have been asking us for forever and things like that. So like those are kind of like, you know, not like crisis decisions or something like that. It's just not what you really want to be doing, I guess. But I would level it, I think, at having to let people go.
Yeah.
Thanks. On a more
Yeah, let's.
happier note, you've done a lot of collabs with artists.
Yes.
And other pedal makers like DBA.
Yes.
What's not the rationale, but how do you come to those collaborations?
Well, the Death by Audio one, that came about from Reverb.com when they put out the movie about pedals called The Pedal Movie. They asked they were asking companies who were interviewed in the movie to like get together, and they kind of were like assigning teams, and they initially put us with a much bigger company that a lot of people would probably be very flattered to work with, and I did not want to work with them at all. And I was like, what about Death by Audio? And they were like, sure. And I was like, yes, that's great. And I say it so much, I'm almost embarrassed at this point because now, of course, we're friends. Death by Audio is my favorite pedal company. I am definitely maybe too much of a fan. At one point, they were telling me that they laugh because I'm the first person who buys everything that comes out. Like, I get the email and I buy it right away, and that actually embarrassed me into not buying a few releases in a while, where I'm like, I don't want to seem so eager, but I've gone back to doing it. So, you know, that was awesome, and like, you know, really getting to know them. Like, we'd hang out at NAMM and stuff like that, but yeah, getting to know them and like, just understanding, I think, how Ollie's brain works. I mean, just some insight into it. Like, the pedal's called Time Shadows, is the art. He named it, he came up with the art. When it came time to name the pedal, I was like, I can't think of anything. Naming for us is like super, sometimes it comes like really quick, but a lot of times it's like this big back and forth between everybody. Like, yes, this doesn't work. And like, we'll change names all the way up. We just did it, a new product that's coming out. We changed names like 4 times. And like right before like the final boards were made, I was like, no, it has to be called something else. Ollie was like, hey, do you have any ideas? 20 minutes, sent me 16 of the best pedal names I've ever seen in my life. Like, every one of them was like, this is amazing. And he hasn't used any of them. Like, none of them have been used. He just sent me this huge list of great pedal names. And it was like, hey, do you got an idea for art? An hour later, awesome art. And I was like, what about like a backup? And like not even an hour later, completely new artwork. Like, it had no relation, and it like looks better even than the final one. So he's I don't know, he's like a mad scientist. He's like really gets stuff together. But you know, like any of us who make pedals, I think like so much of it is just like, I don't know, here, is this good? I sense a lot of that. So there's probably like a lot of similarities between the two of us, even though I think that we have like 2 totally different viewpoints, like where we're trying to end up with it all. It was a lot of fun to work with them. For like working with artists though, like bands, they've all come to us, and like I've never gone to a band and been like, hey, I love your band, let's make a pedal. It's just kind of not in my nature, and in fact I kind of shied away from any of it. Like, we worked with Juan Alderete for years and years, and everybody kept being like, why don't you do like ads with Juan? And like, it just nothing. I think on both sides, like, I just grew up looking at like, you know, Steve Vai and, you know, his like foot on a monitor in Guitar World. I was like, oh, this is gross. I'm not gonna buy this now because he's using it. No offense to Steve Vai, because he seems fucking awesome. If you ever listen to an interview with him, he's out there. You know, it's just like not in my nature, and I think as a company to like use an artist to like promote the sale of a pedal. And I think a lot of times when you see it being done, it's not really done in a very, it's like an obvious like salesy way. So that said, fortunately, like, Sun is not the first band that reached out to us. I turned down a lot of things before that because they were not up our alley at all. But we got,
It wasn't the right time.
yeah, it wasn't the right time. Also, some of them were like just flat out like, you want me to do what? Like, ideas, like just bad ones. But I didn't know Sun, but I got introduced to them through a mutual friend, and because they knew that they were interested in making this pedal based on the sounds they were getting while they were recording Life Metal in the studio. So he was like, I think you guys would be a good fit. We set up a call with me and Greg Anderson. It was supposed to be like 10-minute introduction call, and me and Greg ended up talking for like 2 or 3 hours while I was sitting in front of Amazon trying to make a return. Never did. And like just realized, like, we have so many friends in common. Like, we both like toured a lot through the 90s. He was much more successful than me, but we knew so many of the same people from the same like kind of like punk rock background. And like right away, I was like, you know, I went back to the shop and was like, I think we need to do this pedal with Sun. Very familiar with what they did, but had never seen them or anything. And like now, you know, just fast forward, like that was a very successful pedal. We became good friends, all of us, with Greg and Steven. I think we're very like-minded, and that's very nice, and they're very DIY still to this day, and like watching them grow and like get as big as they are, it's awesome. It's like, you know, they're part of EarthQuaker. Like Julie and I will try to go see them like whenever we can. Usually if they're like whatever the weirdest place they're playing, like we'll try to go to that. And it is like a mind-altering experience. They're a band that if you try to explain it to people, it's like they play one note a minute for like an hour and a half, and at, you know, full volume through 100 amps, and people are like, oh, like drone metal, they're drone. Like, yeah, I guess, but it's not that. It is definitely like a mind-altering experience, I think, and definitely very happy to be part of that and like to have like grown to be good friends with them. And from there, we went on to do Rejoignez-nous with Wada from Boris, which is this pedal right here. And that is like kind of a perfect sonic recreation of her Japanese big muff. It's this elk fuzz tone sustainer with an AR at the end. And again, Boris is like another incredible band that we love, who is also a lot like we are, where they're very much a DIY band. They've been doing it for 20 some years. Like one year they'll put out a thrash metal record, the next year they'll put out like a complete pop record, and then it'll be like an emo record, and then they'll just be a doom metal band for a while. Like they're chameleons, shapeshifters, but they mean all of it, you know, like, and that's important. And it was like an honor to be asked by them to do it. Fun story with it is I developed this pedal through the pandemic, but the whole thing started, like we did an EarthQuaker tour of Japan. So it was my band, at the time was Relaxer, and Lisa Belladonna, who I'm not sure if everyone was familiar with Lisa Belladonna. If you're not, you should be, because she's a genius. I've known her for a long time. I've known her for a very, very long time. Mind-blowing musician. So it was us two from the US, and then Crypt City and Boris from Japan did a 5-day tour of Japan, and really got to know each other on it, and kind of started talking about doing this idea. Started talking about it leading up to it, and then like kind of solidified it on this tour. Then we went into the pandemic, and I have never made more prototypes of a pedal in my life than I did of this Rejoignez-nous pedal, because sending it back and forth. I don't speak any Japanese. They don't speak very much English. We have a guy who works for us, Taka, who does he pretty much handles like all of our EarthQuaker Japan business and like our artist program and stuff like that. He was the middleman. He learned how to speak English in the United States when he moved here, like working in bars. So like sometimes he doesn't have like the best grasp of things. Between the three of us, we really fucked up like a lot of stuff in this like communication, which required me to make 8 prototypes of a pedal that I probably could have nailed the first time if we had just asked the question, will you please send me your pedal? I was going, but I have the exact same pedal. And this is kind of a good lesson. Like I have the exact same pedal. There's a bunch of versions of it. I have the same one. If you look at the board, it's the same board. If you look at a picture of the parts, it's the same parts. I made a perfect recreation of mine and sent it to her. That started this ball rolling of like this bad game of telephone. Which where it went off the rails is there was trying to describe sound, and somebody was like, it's like if it was a saw and the teeth were further apart. I took that as this is a sawtooth waveform and you should make the teeth further apart, and that is not they were being a lot more esoteric in their frilly description. And then it just really went off the rails. At some point I made a pedal that just sounded like a metal zone, and I was like, I hope this sounds like this. And then it got to a point where luckily we, choose my words carefully, but I guess I mean luckily we were in a pandemic, where she wasn't using her pedal, and she sent it to me, and the second I heard it, I was like, oh my God, listen. I know exactly what you're talking about now, and this is nothing like my pedal. And then I was able to make this recreation and send it back to her. But when I had her pedal, I put it against mine to confirm like everything is exactly the same. Everything was exactly the same. I started pulling parts out of mine because I didn't want to ruin hers. And like they were out of spec, but not like wildly out of spec. But I think I got halfway through the circuit before I was like, I see where this is going. It's just this like grand. It's like, you know, it just builds up over time. Like this resistor should be 15K, but it's 13.7. This cap should be 10 UF, you know, whatever. You get the point. All these little differences added up to mine being a very scooped mid, typical bass heavy big muff. Hers was a very mid forward kind of grindy big muff sound, and it was like, can't just copy the circuit, got to make it like somewhat just sonically like hers and leave it at that. So it's a good lesson.
Fantastic.
Ah, thanks so much. Thank you. And then, what else? We have these two right here next to each other, Chelsea and Gary. I believe we started talking about doing Gary first. Gary I made for Lee from the band Idols, if you guys are familiar with Idols. If you're not, you should be. They're one of the greatest live bands around, I think. And very, very interesting with what they do with guitars. You know, just the sounds that they can get out of like some very simplistic and pretty wild guitar playing and a ton of pedals is really, I would say, inspiring and cool. And again, incredible live show. So this started because Lee had been using a bunch of our pedals. Like, I think we did like we did this series for a while called Bored to Death, where artists show their pedal boards, and he was using a ton of our pedals. But one of the pedals he used for like a kind of a main drive tone was called the Gray Channel, and it was two. This is my weird pet project in sort of like a EarthQuaker 10th anniversary like thing that we didn't make a big deal about. EarthQuaker started because I had an old DoD 250 that broke and I couldn't find anyone to repair it, so I did, and then we started this company. Gray Channel was my take on two DoD 250s with a bunch of different clipping options, just kind of run into each other. And Lee was using that a bunch. He was using the green channel of it with no diodes, so it was mostly like a clean boost, and that is what the left side of Gary is. So it's doing what it should be doing, which is overdriving this amp. I don't know why it's happening. Interesting. So yeah, you know, he uses it like that just to drive the front end of the amp. It'll make distortion on its own. It's kind of a big like. It's kind of a clean boost. So he had this idea of, can you just make me that? And I was like, yeah, I can make you that. But what if we made it more interesting and turned it into something? And he was down. So his direction to me was, I want to make a fuzz pedal that sounds like it's broken. So you hit the strings and it cuts out and it sounds like a broken cable. And it's like, that's cool. It's not really like what we do, I guess. I like things to be fun and weird, but I also like them to always be musical. So it's like it can get to the extremes where it like will do really ridiculous stuff, but like then you can also make something that is like traditionally musical, I guess I'll say, or whatever my idea of traditionally musical is. So I took a stab at it, and it wasn't that good, I gotta be honest, at first. But it did do the thing that he wanted. It kind of cut out and faded back in. And he was like, I don't know, like, can you try something else that's maybe a little more extreme? And that ended up becoming what is the right side of Gary. It's a pulse width modulation fuzz. This is kind of, you know, if you play synthesizers, a really basic concept that like people have moved way beyond in the world of synths, but not really a lot in guitar, like pulse width modulation, where you turn the guitar into a square wave and then you vary the pulse width. And like the sonic part of that, it kind of sounds like fuzz phase, but it's not really. The way that it works in Gary is, Lee named these controls. I will never just commit them to memory for some reason. Oosh is the output volume of this, and yes controls the sensitivity of an internal envelope, and that envelope is varying the pulse width. So that sounds like. Here, at this point, it's getting like almost so narrow that it's like not audible anymore, and you can get it like. It does the thing. It sounds like the guitar. Yeah, it sounds like the guitar is breaking. Well, it's really, I mean, it's just getting so narrow that like you just don't hear it anymore. It's not like audible. You can also plug an expression pedal into it, and then this sets the limit for it. So like you can find like that nice spot and just like automatically sweep it. It defeats the envelope. Another fun thing is like you can just put it under CV. So like there's a Old Blood Noise. I'm sure other people make these things too, but they make a thing called the expression ramper, which is essentially, it does a bunch of stuff, but I like running like a really fast LFO into it, and then it creates like a whole nother voice for the guitar. So that's kind of a cool thing you can do with it.
What's the name of that company, sorry?
Say that again?
That pedal?
Old Blood Noise.
Old Blood.
Yeah, expression ramper, and then they make like a triple version of it too. Everyone makes everything. Simultaneously working on that, I got put in touch through some other friends with James Murphy from LCD Sound System. They were using the same Big Muff like through their whole career that he bought at Chelsea Guitars in New York, thus the name. And it was this kind of like, it was a weird version of a Big Muff that they only made for a little while. I think it's version 6. Transistor, all transistor typical Big Muff circuit, but with a tone bypass switch so you can take the tone out of it. Oddly quiet pedal, like max level is pretty much unity gain. I didn't change that, I wanted to, but we just made it exactly how it was. And it had kind of aged to a point where it was like, again, they're using it on bass. If you run a guitar into it, just the frequency response of the guitar is gonna drive it a little harder. They pretty much will run it with the tone off, the sustain all the way down, and it kind of has this like kind of slightly gritty, kind of Motown bass type tone. And then they'll turn the fuzz all the way up, and that's their like super blown out, distorted bass sound. And it pretty much sounds exactly the same. They sent it to me to begin with, which was very nice. So it wasn't, I did it the first time. And that was a kind of an example of like, we didn't know, I knew, actually I should take this back. Tyler Pope, who plays bass in their band, I knew him very well. Well, I'm not gonna say very well, we're not best friends, but like, he was in a band called Chick Chick Chick, if anybody remembers this band with the 3 exclamation points. And my bands used to play with them all the time, and they would like come hang at our house for like weeks at a time and ruin everything. And they were great. They were great people, and like we were very similar. But then over the years, like we just kind of lost touch, and he went on to play in LCD Sound System, who is one of my favorite bands of all time. So, you know, we got put in touch with them through Vice Cooler, who's our West Coast videographer. And the first person I met was their like lead tech. He was very, very nice, but I don't really like to work with people unless I can talk to the person who wants the thing. So I asked to be put in touch with James Murphy, and I've heard mixed things about dealing with him. But he was awesome. He was super nice. And again, it was another story like meeting Greg Anderson from Sun the first time. We had tons of mutual friends. We kind of came from the same world. He just ended up in a wildly different place. And I was like, yeah, this will be great. This will be super cool. The way that LCD does business, as you might know, is they just are also very DIY, almost to an insane extent for a band of their size, where they do it all themselves, and they'll just put out a record or not put out a record. Who cares? They don't. They don't advertise. They don't do anything. So that was kind of the agreement going into it. It's like, we make this pedal for them, and it was really for them. If we want to put it out, we can. That's great. He's not going to do anything for it. So that's why, like, you don't see like James Murphy being like, I made this pedal with EarthQuaker, because that's his thing, and that's fine. We did get like Tyler talking about it and playing some bass through it, which is amazing. It was like more than we ever expected. How did I get on this rant? Oh, there's a fun story that I was supposed to tell, not this thing about how they work. Oh, yeah. So I was working on these two at the same time. These two bands did not know each other, and they went on tour like while I was developing both of these, got to be friends, put out a song together, and then we released both of their pedals, like sandwiched on either side of them releasing that single. So that was like a cool, weird coincidence where like these two people that didn't know each other, and I kind of knew both of them, and then they were like on tour and put out this record, and it happens to be two of my favorite bands. It's wild. So like, again, very, very fortunate to like have these people who are awesome. But I do believe in like the world of like music and art and stuff like that. Like like-minded people end up gravitating towards each other.
Do you consider the Oof as your first signature pedal?
Well, no.
No? Because I remember it was all around down our back in the day.
Yeah. I guess that's.
I don't want to open scars or something.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll leave it at that. But like, it was based on his Big Mouth. I made it mostly for myself because I bought one and it didn't. But that can be said about like all EarthQuaker stuff. But I bought one and it didn't sound anything like his at all. And then he ended up using it, the first prototype that I made, and people started asking what it was. And that is kind of the start of like how I started selling pedals. Is I'd put stuff on my eBay before that, but like on Harmony Central, back when that wasn't just a bot for Guitar Center, like people would communicate on there, and like that's like somebody made a post one time that was like, "What is he using? It sounds awesome." And I was like, "I made that," and then I just started taking orders for it from there. So in some ways, maybe, but I would never say that. I'll just say that in here and then on wherever this is going.
I'm curious about the relationship between marketing and how it used to be, and what seems to me like the total capture of the online pedal sphere by social media, guitar guy influencers and YouTubers and shit. How big of a factor is that actually? And I don't know. What's that like for you, watching it transition from how it was 15 years ago to
today?
it's like 10 demos dropping on the same day.
It's so overwhelming, and in some ways we don't play that game anymore. I do believe everybody should be paid for doing work, and that is kind of part of the reason, maybe why we're not doing it. The amount of money, I guess I just wanted to say, the amount of money that some companies are paying for some of these people to talk about their stuff is fucking crazy. Like, I wish I should be a demo artist.
Yeah.
I just take some communication classes and I'd make more money than actually making pedals. But like, it's wild. So like, you can't. I don't know who can afford to play the game. I guess we, if you pay attention to us, have not really changed much in our approach to doing stuff. And that, I like that though. Like, I kind of like being consistent. You know, we've changed the way that our videos look a little bit over time, just for something new. But yeah, it's so overwhelming. Like, to release a new product these days, like, you have to have like there has to be some brand awareness to not play that game. And I think that we have, on some level, like the brand awareness and a good relationship with a lot of dealers, where it's like, we have a new thing, this is what we can give you for it, you know, like, they're willing to learn it and promote it and things like that. But it's wild. Like, I don't watch pedal demos. Like, I get my fill of pedals from myself. But I am getting bummed. I looked at one pedal video on Facebook like 2 weeks ago. It won't stop showing me pedals. It's so irritating. Like, on the other hand, some of them are awesome, and I had no idea they existed. So it's like, maybe this shit works. I don't know, but I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. And then it's like, so much of this shit is somehow related to Meta and Google, and somehow probably comes back to Joe Rogan. I don't know. It all sucks. Or Elon Musk, rather, I guess. They're the same person. Yeah, I don't know. I think that it's like, I actually don't know if that amount of advertising is actually helpful. I guess, do any of you own pedal companies or buy pedals and stuff? Like, do you feel like it helps, like, getting bombarded with stuff? Yeah. It's just overwhelming, I think. But also, it's like, how do you like draw that? Like, you want people to know about the stuff that you make, but it's like, does everybody need to know from everybody all the time? I don't know. It used to be so nice when it was just like people who were stoked on new stuff and like bought it, and they were like, I just want to make a demo because I like to play and show people what I can do with this stuff. And it's not really like that anymore. It's all monetized in some weird way. And like, you're making me put dots together here. The way that, like, when we started like advertising in magazines, and it suddenly dawned on me that like, no one is ever going to give a bad review to anything in a magazine because they are getting paid $1,500 to talk about this thing. Nothing is real anymore. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, everything is bullshit. So, yeah, I would love to have sent, you know, some shitty magazine like Guitar World. I take that back. No, maybe I don't take it back. One of those magazines did a bikini issue and fucking put us in it. Like, it's awful. It just popped into my head. And I think it was them, so fuck them. I would love it if we would have paid them money, and they're like, this pedal sucks. But they're never going to. They're never going to do that. And that's the same thing with these YouTube demo artists and stuff like that. You know, they will make anything sound good. You know.
Speaking of sounding good, you started the showcase with 3 pedals together: the Afterneath, Beta Corruptor, Record Machine. Out of the current lineup, what's your favorite combo, and can you play it to us?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of did in the beginning. Was that I really? There's like another combo that's not on here because I will just go for it every single time, which is Big Commander, Grand Orbiter, and Hummingbird together. Like, those 3, I think, make a really good guitar voice. maybe I should start talking about pedals before I like put my own foot in my mouth talking about YouTube demo artists. I apologize. Those were my feelings.
But can I add?
Yes.
The best videos are from 2018-19 when Juan and Nick Weinhardt were doing.
See, that was kind of the thing though. Like their take on doing stuff was very much like they were getting paid, but they were getting paid like a reasonable amount, and they were not like stressing. They were not writing stuff. They were not making pitch. They never asked us for like, what do you want to talk about with this stuff? They were just doing it, and they did it because they really like to do it. And I'm not saying that's a better way of doing it, but it's a more authentic way for sure, 100%. And there was a lot of people doing that. And I think Andy, who like I know from Pro Guitar Shop, now at Reverb, also is like that too. Like he definitely gets paid, and he is a great talker and a great like shill for pedals, but he means it. Like he does not talk about stuff he does not like. Like he will not review everything that we make. He doesn't do it for everybody, you know, but it's his job, so he gets paid to do it. He's really great at doing it. I think that, yeah, you are right. Like that was kind of a they like a heyday of that.
As well, like he's the second when I watched the videos.
Yeah.
He's very interesting. He doesn't use picks, so.
Yeah, you know,
It's like
he's
really,
he's a super interesting guitar player, and like he always picks the greatest songs to demo stuff with. I remember he did one of our pedals with what was a Moon Over a Dead Kennedy song. And it was like a delay pedal, and I was like, this is fucking awesome. Like never in a million years would I imagine like somebody was gonna do this for, it was Disaster Transport the first time it came out. It was super cool. Man, now I'm like, I feel really bad. I forgot that there's people here and like it's on the internet saying negative shit about YouTube demo artists and stuff.
Some questions from YouTube.
God damn it.
But YouTube, actually, not people.
YouTube, yeah, it's Google. It's Google is asking questions.
Julie's looking at me like, yeah, you fucked up. I mean it though, I guess. It's my opinion.
Yeah, there's a question. What are your top 3 favorite EQD pedals and why?
I'm gonna go with the Rainbow Machine first because, and these are also like, they happen to be, I feel like our most misunderstood pedals. The Rainbow Machine at its heart is a pitch shifter and not a very good one. But that is sort of intentional. So I'll just show you like the pitch shifting piece of this. So there are a couple settings that I really like on this. I did that too perfect. If it's just slightly off center. It does this like kind of cool slapback delay thing, and then sometimes you can get it to do like just like a chorus, like I don't know why I said sometimes, all the time, if you set it like slightly off, it's like a automatic double tracking like style chorus. And it will do that like kind of climbing, or you can kind of detune it a little. So you can do, I feel like my favorite is when it's like more subtle settings, like with the pitch like dead noon or like kind of slightly offset. When you get it, you can line it up perfect where it like just really just sounds like it's doubled. And we did a slight revision to this pedal at one point, and I put a center detent pot in it so you can like kind of nail that. And it really, it didn't come out because it ruined the pedal. Like, I feel like I sent it to Nick Reinhardt and was like, you can get this sound, but is this worse? And he's like, yeah, totally, it's worse. Because you kind of need it to be slightly imperfect, and you couldn't find that around the notch. So it's like locking in. And then of course it can do this thing that is what people think of. Which is a novel sound. Pixie dust. Everybody always just thinks of that when they think of the Rainbow Machine, but I really think those like kind of slapback chorus type things are really, really interesting. Just unpredictable enough to make it fun, but like you're pretty much gonna get the same thing every time. But every once in a while it'll latch onto like some kind of harmonic in a weird way, and you're like, what the fuck is that? How can I make it happen again? And you can't. And that's fun. It'll make you keep trying, which is, you know, something I guess I look for in musical instruments. So there's that. The other ones, I won't get it too into detail with the data corruptor. I really like the sound of this pedal. It also has generated my favorite negative comment ever for all of our pedals on YouTube, which was an early comment, I think, on the day that we released the video. And I always wanted to make a poster of it, a movie-style poster with a quote underneath from whoever the genius was who said this, but it says, "Sounds like a bunch of farts in the key of shit." Which is a great description of any pedal, and I guess if they play like what happened? If they play like, yeah, it sounds like fucking garbage. It's not how you play to this pedal. But if you play like, I don't know. It's not for everybody, I realize that, but you know, if you just put it so like this root of the subharmonic, maybe I should explain how it works just a little bit. Everything across the top is a mixer, essentially. So there's a square wave, which is the square wave fuzz tone, subharmonic, which is the divided fuzz tone, and the oscillator, which is the multiplied fuzz tone. the subharmonic, the divided side, can take its root from two places: unison, which is just the input square wave, or the oscillator, which is the multiplied side. So it can either divide whatever the master oscillator's frequency is. As I'm saying this, I realize it's somewhat confusing. Or just from like the root note that you're giving it. And then the master oscillator can take its root from unison or 1 or 2 octaves down. And the reason why is because it can multiply it up to 3 times. And at some point it just gets, as you heard at the end, like so high and bright that it's irritating. And then there's like kind of always like a modulation to it. You can speed it up and have it be like a vibrato type tone. Which is kind of an intense use for it. Admittedly, I would never touch that. I would never use that. It's just not conducive to how I play. That is, I think it's awesome. If you're old enough to remember Excite Bike, it sounds like that. I don't know, I think it's a cool pedal, and it's not that difficult to understand or to like learn how to play to it. It's just a monophonic octave pedal. If you play in the neck pickup and single notes and play a little bit clean, it's gonna always produce like something, some kind of musical tone. It's very like kind of 8-bit synthy type sound. And there's not, I mean, so is the style of pedals like a phase lock loop where it's, in a nutshell, tracking a square wave oscillator with the guitar. There's a much more popular, like sought after one called the Schumann PLL, which I never played through until maybe 3 years ago. JP, who plays bass in the band The Locust, uses them, and we were friends. I guess we reconnected, and he's like, hey, do you want me to send you my Schumann to check out? And I was like, of course I do. And then I kept it for a year, like a total asshole. But I don't think they sound the same. Similar concept. The Schumann is very wild, and I think responsible for a lot of the insane sounds the Locust makes. This one I think is very predictable. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, what's funny with those pedals is that they're both harmonizers, but radically different approaches to it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was curious about how, maybe there's a reason, but you do these Eurorack versions of certain pedals.
Yeah.
I'm surprised those two never made it to the series, because they seem ripe for Eurorack use.
They do.
Is there a reason why some of them make it, some of them don't? Is it just too much time to spend on a product?
It's multiple reasons, I guess, but like the Eurorack stuff does take a really long time. If you think the pedal world is saturated, the Eurorack world is way more saturated with about 1/10 of the audience. So like we did an afterneath Eurorack, and that really came about because we have this friend who is an incredible musician and like an inventor of musical instruments, and he also works as an electronic engineer at a place that does stuff like aircraft braking systems and other like really boring things like that. But it's owned by Jim Mothersbaugh, who is Mark Mothersbaugh's brother, and Jim was the original drummer in Devo and created synthesizers for Roland and stuff like that. So when he found out that there was like our company, like right down the street from him, he got super excited and like came and took a tour. It's like, anything you guys ever want to do with us, we'd love to work with you because we make aircraft braking systems.
Well, it's a high standard.
Yeah, of course, yeah. I mean, they're making like, yeah, very, very good quality, very smart people, like a small team of engineers, but all brilliant. But one of them was a friend of ours. His name is John Sonnenberg. He performs under the name Travelogue. He's in that movie I Dream of Wires a bunch. He very frequently does like lectures on sound and things like that. We did a collaboration with the Akron Symphony that he scored, and like developed for use with our pedals on acoustic instruments, like symphonic instruments. So, you know, we're good friends. He's super smart, but he was like, I got an idea for the afterneath, and I think it would make a good Eurorec module, so we worked on it. And we actually pulled a piece of it out and put it in the pedal, too, because I felt like it worked really well. It was, like, interesting for guitar. So that's what kind of started our, like, dabbling in Eurorec. And then we have an employee, Josh Collins, who's also an inventor of bizarre musical instruments. And he just really wanted to work on something. He does our IT internally, among other things. Like, he's an expert on any bizarre problem you might have. Like, is your land infested by groundhogs? He knows the right predator urine for it. I always cite that because that was like the first thing where I was like, he fucking knows everything. Why does he know? Why is it? We were having a meeting and he walked by and was like, predator urine, and then just like walked out. Like, what are you talking about? He was right.
Yep.
Yeah, wolf urine will get rid of groundhogs if you got them.
Nature working its ways.
Yeah. I blew my own train of thought thinking about predator urine. Yeah, Josh, you know, worked on the next Eurorec module, the wave transformer.
That's a great name for a pedal, predator.
Was that predator? You're not the first person to say that. Yeah, it's in my list of pedal names. Predator urine. Yeah. So yeah, Josh is working on that, and like, I kind of put him like in charge. Like, I had all these ideas for some pretty simple Eurorec things, and like he has very complex ideas and thoughts. But one day we'll make some more of that stuff. But like, when it comes to like the transfer of pedals, like things like the data corruptor, I sort of feel like have already been done better in the synthesizer world than like the pedal itself would actually translate to. Perfect segue into things that surprise me are a lot of like fuzz pedals and things like that end up working really well with like in surprising ways with like synthesizers and drum machines and stuff like that. So those are some of the things that I've thought more about, like transferring into a Eurorec format. I will stop playing guitar just for a second just to show you what I'm talking about. Here. So if everything is going well, there should be a pretty basic drum beat happening on this. So it's like that. It's like fun to manipulate, and it's kind of creating something that wasn't there to begin with. And like, no, that was actually that was Fuzzmaster General, which is something that we released last weekend. It was an old pedal of ours that we discontinued. That we decided to do like a limited reissue of it. So we made 1,600 of them. Announced it at EarthQuaker Day, which we had at our headquarters last weekend. And now it's available for sale on the internet. But it's like an octave, like a pretty harsh octave fuzz, kind of in the, you know, based on like the Acetone fuzz machine, which is a Japanese fuzz pedal that is basically a super fuzz. But you can get like a super fuzz has like a tone switch on the side, so it's kind of scoop mids or harsh. This you can kind of vary between all of those with the tone control. And then the fuzz control is implemented in a completely different way where you can get some really clean tones out of it. And that's kind of how I was running it initially into there, is just straight into an octave up, which on a guitar really kind of sounds like a ring modulator, and I feel like on this does some like really interesting things. Kind of just like smears the hi-hat a little bit. And then there's this setting, I guess this would be more of an impact if I showed you with the guitar, but with the guitar on the time shadows in this middle position, it's a pitch shifting delay where it's like every repeat is both shifting up and down simultaneously, and it can be really atonal or it can be really interesting depending, again, on how you're playing, much like the data corrupter. And with the guitar, most people will play their power chords and be like, oh, that's funny, it's like the Rainbow Machine, that's shit, what are you gonna do with it? And you can do a lot with it if you're willing to kind of sit with it. I think it sounds really cool, especially with a drum machine. So it'll kind of like the hi-hat will latch onto the upper octave, like the kick drum will sometimes hit at the right time with the sub-octave, and then it kind of creates these cool repeats, and then you can do the weird dub thing with it, with just turning the time up. And it becomes, I think, like a really playable pedal when you're using stuff like that, like playing the pedal and just letting like a really basic thing do its thing. Yeah, that's that, I guess. Oh, there was actually one other thing I wanted to show you. Just this in particular with synths, I feel like the Hizu meet us. Like whenever we do like synth-focused events, there's always like as soon as we like it opens, there's always like 20 people who are like, hey, do you have the Hizu meet us? And like we'll sell them all right away because it does do this. Like it's nothing like mind-blowing, like you've never heard, but it's just this like really nice sound. Like if you plug any synth into it, it just like distorts in like such a nice, yeah, just like a nice pleasing way. And I feel like it even does it with the drum machine too. Like, that was a surprise to me. So that was like the pyramids and the barber pole, but with the tempo, and it was just latching. It was just like a different frequency every time. So it created this kind of arpeggiating sequence out of just that. So it is towards my argument of why like actual physical things with knobs are a lot more fun to play and fun surprises come out of them. And I feel like you don't have to worry as much about all of the technical weird aspects of shit, and then you end up just being surprised and wanting to play with stuff more. So,
Good pedal.
thanks, thank you. I've been talking a long time about stuff.
No worries. That was very interesting. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Thanks everyone for coming. We also have a EarthQuaker sale right now going on until next Monday. We have 15% off on all EarthQuaker devices. So if you guys, you can buy right now. Also, if you can check in the party pool. I put the discount code on the website. Just apply that and you get the 15% off. So thank you very much for coming.
Of course, thank you so much for having me.